The neighborhood looked perfect from the outside. Every house had a neat lawn, every car was parked exactly where it should be, and every mailbox stood at the exact same height. The streets were quiet except for the gentle sound of sprinklers in the early morning. Jessica had just moved here with her young daughter Lily, hoping for a fresh start. Their house was a cozy two-story with blue shutters and a small ramp leading to the front door. Lily was 12 years old and used a walker to get around because of her condition. She had the brightest smile and always made jokes about how her walker was her magic chariot. The neighbors seemed friendly at first. They waved from their porches and brought casseroles during the first week. Everything felt normal until Jessica met Patricia at the mailbox one Tuesday afternoon. Patricia was in her 50s, dressed in a crisp white blouse with perfect hair that never moved in the wind. "Welcome to the neighborhood," Patricia said with a smile that didn't quite reach her eyes. "I see you have some special equipment there." She pointed at Lily's walker, which was parked by their front steps. "That's Lily's walker," Jessica explained. "She needs it to get around." Patricia's smile tightened slightly. "Oh, I see. Well, you'll want to make sure it doesn't become an eyesore. Our HOA has very strict rules about keeping things tidy." Jessica felt a chill despite the warm weather. "Of course, we'll make sure everything looks nice." Over the next few weeks, Jessica noticed Patricia watching them. She'd see her peeking through her blinds or suddenly appearing whenever Lily was playing in the yard. Patricia would find little reasons to stop by. A misplaced trash can, a package left too long on the doorstep, grass that was supposedly too long. "Your daughter's equipment really should be stored inside," Patricia mentioned one evening. "It sets a bad example for property values." Jessica tried to stay patient. "Lily needs it close by. We can't have her struggling to get it from the garage every time she wants to go out." The tension grew slowly, like storm clouds gathering. Other neighbors started telling Jessica that Patricia had a history of complaints. She'd reported a veteran for flying his flag wrong, complained about a widow's garden gnomes, and tried to fine a family for their children's sidewalk chalk art. But Jessica had dealt with difficult people before. As a senior investigator at her office, she'd learned to stay calm under pressure. She documented everything Patricia said, took photos of any issues mentioned, and tried to keep things peaceful for Lily's sake. Little did she know, this perfect neighborhood was about to become the center of a much bigger storm. As weeks passed, Patricia's behavior became more aggressive. She started leaving notes on Jessica's door about proper neighborhood standards. One morning, Jessica found a formal warning from the HOA about Lily's walker being left on the front porch overnight. "Mom, why does that lady hate my walker so much?" Lily asked one Saturday while they were having lunch. Jessica sighed and pulled her daughter close. "Some people just don't understand, sweetie. But don't worry, we have every right to be here." The situation escalated when Patricia started attending every HOA board meeting, bringing up new complaints each time. She complained about the blue paint on Jessica's house being too bright, about their car being parked wrong in their own driveway, and about Lily playing too loudly in their backyard. Other neighbors started noticing Patricia's obsessive behavior. The Johnsons, who lived across the street, told Jessica they'd received similar treatment when they first moved in. Mrs. Johnson had been complained about for hanging wind chimes that Patricia called noise pollution. "She's been doing this for years," Mr. Johnson explained. "She thinks she runs this neighborhood. Just be careful and keep records of everything." Jessica did exactly that. She saved every note, every complaint, and even installed a security camera after Patricia was caught measuring their grass at 6 a.m. to see if it exceeded the HOA's height limit. One particularly tense moment came when Patricia organized a neighborhood improvement committee. She went door to door, claiming they needed to address properties that lowered the neighborhood standards. Jessica knew without asking that this was aimed at them. "I don't care what her problem is," Lily said one evening after school. "This is our home too. And my walker helps me be like everyone else." Jessica felt proud of her daughter's strength, but she also knew things were getting worse. Patricia had started making comments at the local grocery store, telling other shoppers about the problem family in their perfect neighborhood. The breaking point was coming. Jessica could feel it in the air, in the way Patricia's smile grew colder each day, in the way she'd stop talking whenever Jessica approached. She was planning something big, and Jessica wanted to be ready. "We're not leaving," Jessica told Lily firmly. "This is our home, and we have every right to be here. No one can push us out." But deep down, Jessica knew Patricia was escalating to something more serious. She just didn't know what form it would take, and that worried her more than anything. It was a typical Monday morning when Jessica left for work. She kissed Lily goodbye and reminded her to call if she needed anything. The morning nanny, Mrs. Thompson, had just arrived to help Lily get ready for school. Everything seemed normal as Jessica backed out of the driveway. Around noon, Mrs. Thompson called Jessica in panic. "You need to come home right away. Something terrible has happened to Lily's walker." Jessica's heart dropped. She rushed home, weaving through traffic and praying it wasn't serious. When she pulled into her driveway, she saw Lily sitting on the porch steps, tears streaming down her face. Her walker lay in pieces on the lawn. The frame bent, wheels detached, and the handles twisted in an impossible angle. "What happened?" Jessica asked, pulling Lily into her arms. Mrs. Thompson heard a loud crash. Lily sobbed. "When she looked outside, my walker was already broken. The security camera might have caught it. We haven't checked yet." Jessica felt anger rising in her chest, but she kept her voice steady for Lily. "Let's go see what the camera shows, okay?" They went inside and pulled up the security footage on the living room computer. At exactly 10:47 a.m., the video showed Patricia marching toward their house. She grabbed Lily's walker from where it was parked by the front steps and deliberately smashed it against the sidewalk multiple times. Then she kicked the broken pieces before storming back to her house. Lily gasped. "Why would she do that to me?" Jessica's hands trembled with rage, but she forced herself to stay calm. "I don't know, sweetie, but we're going to handle this properly." She immediately called the police to file a report, while Mrs. Thompson comforted Lily. When the officers arrived, Jessica showed them the video evidence. They looked shocked at Patricia's actions. "That's destruction of property and possibly targeted harassment," one officer said. "We'll go speak with her now." After the police left, Jessica called the medical supply company about replacing the walker. The replacement would take a week to arrive, meaning Lily would be stuck at home or restricted in her movement. "I'm so sorry this happened," Mrs. Thompson said, helping Lily sit comfortably on the couch. "That woman has some nerve." Jessica knelt beside her daughter. "We're going to get through this, and Patricia won't get away with hurting you like this. I promise." Later that afternoon, other neighbors started arriving with support. The Johnsons brought over a spare wheelchair they had in their garage. Another family offered to drive Lily to school. Even the mailman, who had seen everything, offered to write a witness statement. As Jessica tucked Lily into bed that night, her daughter asked, "Mom, are you scared of Patricia?" Jessica thought for a moment. "I'm not scared, honey. Patricia picked the wrong person to mess with. You'll see." The next day, Jessica started making phone calls. She knew exactly what needed to be done, and Patricia had no idea who she was dealing with. That evening, Jessica started her investigation the way she would at work, methodically and thoroughly. She gathered all the evidence, printed copies of Patricia's complaints, the security footage, photos of the damaged walker, and testimonies from neighbors. Jessica visited the local police station to get a copy of her report, then stopped by the courthouse to file a civil claim. As she worked, memories of similar cases she'd handled professionally came flooding back. She knew exactly how to build an ironclad case. The next day, Jessica knocked on doors throughout the neighborhood. To her surprise, nearly everyone had stories about Patricia's bullying behavior. Mr. Peterson, the retired teacher, shared how Patricia had filed complaints about his holiday decorations. The young couple at the end of the street had dealt with complaints about their babies crying. Even the neighborhood's oldest resident, Miss Clark, had faced threats over her rose garden. She told me my roses were invasive species and needed to be removed immediately. Miss Clark said, shaking her head, "I planted them the same week I moved here 30 years ago." But what Jessica discovered next was even more alarming. Patricia had systematically targeted every family that was different in some way. Those with disabilities, different ethnicities, single parents, or anyone who didn't fit her perfect neighborhood image. Jessica documented everything carefully, creating a timeline of Patricia's harassment patterns. She photographed property damage Patricia had caused to other neighbors and collected copies of threatening letters Patricia had sent to residents. During this investigation, Jessica learned that Patricia's husband had passed away 2 years ago, and neighbors believed this was when her behavior had worsened. She used to be strict, but after losing her husband, she became controlling with everyone. Mrs. Johnson explained. Jessica maintained her cover as just another concerned parent while gathering evidence. When Patricia saw her talking to neighbors, she assumed Jessica was just venting or giving up. One afternoon, Patricia cornered Jessica at the mailbox, having second thoughts about living here. She smirked. "This neighborhood has standards, and perhaps it's not the right fit for your special situation." Jessica remained calm. "Actually, I'm quite happy here, though I have noticed some concerning behaviors from certain residents." Patricia's eyes narrowed. "Are you threatening me? Because my husband left me well connected. The HOA board president is my cousin, and the head of the permit office is my brother-in-law. You can't touch me." This revelation was exactly what Jessica needed. Patricia had just admitted to nepotism and corruption within local government. Her investigation training told her this was likely just the beginning of a larger problem. "I'm not threatening anyone," Jessica replied smoothly, "just observing patterns of behavior that might need addressing." As Patricia stormed away, Jessica made a mental note. The pieces were coming together, painting a picture of systemic issues beyond just one toxic neighbor. Her professional instincts were taking over, and she could see this case had far from. What Jessica didn't know yet was that Patricia had called an emergency HOA board meeting for the following Wednesday. A brightly colored notice appeared on every mailbox. Urgent HOA meeting, addressing property standards and rule violations. When Jessica arrived at the community center that evening, she found the room packed with neighbors. Patricia sat at the head table with the other board members, wearing her usual crisp outfit and an expression of satisfaction. She clearly thought this meeting would be her victory. As the meeting began, Patricia immediately launched into her complaints. "We have a situation that threatens the harmony of our community. Rules are being ignored, property values are at risk, and certain residents refuse to follow basic guidelines." Her eyes locked on Jessica. The board members nodded along as Patricia presented her prepared list of violations. She had photos, printed HOA rules, and even a petition she claimed was signed by concerned residents. Everything pointed directly at Jessica and Lily. When it was time for responses, Jessica stood up calmly. Patricia smiled triumphantly, clearly expecting Jessica to become emotional or defensive. "I'd like to address these concerns," Jessica began, pulling out a folder from her bag. "But first, let me introduce myself properly." She placed her Department of Justice credentials on the table. "My name is Jessica Mitchell, and I'm a senior investigator with the DOJ." The room went completely silent. Patricia's face went pale, then turned bright red. "Over the past 2 weeks, I've discovered concerning patterns of harassment, discrimination, and potential corruption within this HOA," Jessica continued. "What started as a personal issue has revealed systematic problems that likely violate federal and state laws." Jessica began presenting her evidence methodically. She showed the security footage of Patricia destroying Lily's walker. She read testimonies from neighbors about targeted harassment. She displayed documentation of Patricia's admitted connections within local government. Under the Fair Housing Act and the Americans with Disabilities Act, Denying accommodation to disabled residents constitutes discrimination, Jessica explained. The systematic targeting of certain families based on their differences further violates federal anti-discrimination laws. Patricia finally found her voice. You can't just come into our community and make accusations. This is our neighborhood, and we have rules. The law supersedes HOA rules, Jessica replied firmly. And your own admission of having relatives in local government positions who've been making decisions in your favor suggests corruption that warrants federal investigation. The other board members shifted uncomfortably in their seats. They hadn't known about Patricia's family connections or her extreme behavior toward residents. My daughter has every right to be here, Jessica continued. But this investigation isn't just about us anymore. Multiple families have been targeted, harassed, and discriminated against. That stops now. Patricia stood up abruptly, knocking over her water glass. This is ridiculous. You're overreacting to simple neighborhood management. Destroying a child's medical equipment isn't neighborhood management, Jessica said quietly. It's criminal behavior. The tension in the room was thick enough to cut with a knife. Everyone could sense that something fundamental had just changed in their community. The room erupted in whispers as Jessica's revelation sank in. Patricia attempted to regain control, but her confidence had clearly shaken. This meeting is supposed to be about residential standards, not these wild accusations, Patricia stammered. I think it's time we listen to what everyone has to say, said Mr. Harrison, another board member who seemed relieved that someone had finally addressed the issues. One by one, neighbors began standing up to share their experiences. Mrs. Chen described how Patricia had filed complaints about her holiday decorations every year. The Martinez family spoke about being questioned about their right to live there after buying their house outright. Each story painted a clearer picture of systematic harassment. I've been fined 3 times for my son's basketball hoop, even though it meets all HOA requirements, said Mr. Williams, a local teacher. Meanwhile, Patricia's nephew has had his broken-down car in his driveway for months without any consequences. Patricia's face grew redder with each testimony. She tried interrupting several times, but the board members now seemed more interested in hearing the truth. You have no right to investigate our community. Patricia finally burst out. I've been protecting this neighborhood for 20 years. Protection doesn't include terrorizing residents, Jessica replied calmly. The evidence shows a pattern of selective enforcement, harassment of families with disabilities, and discrimination based on race and income. The mailman who had come to support Jessica raised his hand. I can confirm I've seen Patricia go through residents' mail and make comments about people's backgrounds based on where they receive packages from. This admission caused an audible gasp from the crowd. Tampering with mail is a federal offense, and everyone knew it. Patricia's lawyer, who had been sitting quietly in the back, approached the table. My client invokes her right to remain silent and will not answer further questions tonight. That's fair, Jessica acknowledged, but the investigation will continue. I've already contacted state authorities about the corruption allegations, and federal authorities are aware of the discrimination issues. After the meeting, Patricia stormed out, but her departure seemed to release tension from the room. Neighbors surrounded Jessica, thanking her for speaking up. I had no idea about the discrimination laws, admitted a board member. We just took Patricia's word on everything. She seems so knowledgeable about regulations. Knowledge without proper oversight leads to abuse, Jessica replied. Your HOA needs transparent guidelines and independent review processes. The local newspaper reporter who had attended approached Jessica. Would you mind if I covered this story? I think the community deserves to know what's been happening. The truth should always come to light, Jessica agreed. As she drove home that night, Jessica reflected on how one person's hatred had poisoned an entire community, but she also felt hopeful. Change was coming, and her daughter would finally be able to call this place home without fear. 3 months after the explosive HOA meeting, the neighborhood had transformed completely. The local newspaper had run a series of articles about Patricia's behavior. leading to a community-wide discussion about discrimination and fair housing. Patricia quietly moved away 2 weeks after the meeting. Her attorney had advised her that criminal and civil charges were pending. The HOA board underwent a complete restructuring, with clear policies established for fair treatment of all residents, regardless of their circumstances. Jessica returned home from work one Friday evening to find an amazing sight. The entire street was lined with paper lanterns and balloons. Neighbors had organized a community festival to celebrate the positive changes and welcome everyone properly. "Surprise!" Lily shouted, wheeling toward her mother on her brand-new walker. The whole neighborhood worked together to plan this. The Johnsons had arranged for a local dance troupe to perform. The Martinez family brought traditional food to share. Even grumpy Mr. Peterson smiled as children played games on the street. Everyone had contributed something meaningful. "I never imagined this would happen," admitted Tom Harrison, the newly elected HOA president. "Patricia's behavior had become so normal to us that we forgot what a real community should feel like." The new HOA board had implemented several important changes. They established an accessibility committee led by Ms. Clark and her rose garden expertise. They created an anonymous complaint system to prevent future bullying. Most importantly, they hired an independent management company to ensure fair enforcement of rules. "We learned that rules should serve people, not control them," explained Maria Rodriguez, a new board member. "Every family brings something special to our community." As the evening continued, neighbors shared stories of helping each other during tough times. The widow down the street received grocery deliveries from young families. The veterans who had faced Patricia's complaints now organized monthly potlucks. Parents created a support network for families with special needs. Lily's new walker was decorated with ribbons and stickers made by neighborhood children. She showed Jessica the signatures they'd collected. "They all promised to be better friends," she explained with pride. Later that night, after the festivities ended, Jessica tucked Lily into bed. Her daughter looked thoughtful as she gazed out the window at their decorated street. "Mom," Lily asked softly, "do you think Patricia will ever change?" Jessica considered carefully before answering. "Some people carry hurt inside them that makes them act badly. Patricia had to face consequences for her actions, but I hope someday she'll learn to be kinder." "I'm glad we stayed here," Lily said, reaching for her mother's hand. "This is our real home now." Jessica smiled, watching neighbors clean up together outside. What had started as Patricia's attempt to force them out had instead created a stronger, more united community. The neighborhood had learned that true standards meant treating everyone with dignity and respect.